we go. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead, have your notes out. We're going to continue looking at the developments associated with 1989. The Berlin Wall comes down. The Berlin Wall comes down. This is like when I was growing up and people were talking about, oh yeah, you know, the Great Depression and World War I and Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. I'm like, old? Wow. You're talking about, you must be old because you're talking about stuff that happened before I was born. So when I tell you what my impressions were when the Berlin Wall came down, you're going to look and go, that's nice. You're so old. But write this down. Shh. Write this down. You ready? When the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, okay, November of 1989, because that's what this is all leading up to. Let me see. November 9th, I think it was. The Berlin Wall came down that night. 1989, there were a lot of people that teared up, felt very emotional. The Berlin Wall, I think, is one of those sort of visual, physical things that epitomizes the Cold War, the separation of people. People died at the Berlin Wall, people trying to get over, to get to the other side. And when I mean the other side, they wanted to go from East Berlin to West Berlin. Jackson, are you like having fun over there? Yeah, okay. All right, so I mean, trust me, we're going to get to some celebration stuff going on here as we tell this story because we were celebrating. I mean, I remember getting all gushy because it's like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Because when I was your age, like we're like in the Cold War, we figured that the Soviet Union maybe, I don't know, would they, could they? I mean, they could. We could too. We could blow each other up to kingdom come. They had television shows. I remember there was this one. It was called The Day After. It was a very good TV show because it was so depressing. It really shook people's minds because some people were like, I don't know, if we kind of like nuked them, I mean, they nuked us a little bit, we'd still be okay. No. We listened to very credible scientific information that said if you explode that many nuclear devices in the world, you're going to have nuclear radiation floating all over the place, and it is going to make its way around the world and kill you with nuclear radiation, right? Because it sucks to, I mean, in Chernobyl, Landon, right? Did people die that were not physically present to see, like, a nuclear power plant, like, melt down and release radiation? Yeah. So, I mean, in this movie, The Day After, it showed, you know, obviously if you were near the explosion, goodbye, right? And in that way, it was like better, even though it sucked. But the people who like, oh, I'm going to go crawl into a shelter. For how long? Because the atmosphere and the Earth's environment and so forth are detrimentally poisoned for years and years and years. Just 2 weeks? Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you go to Chernobyl and hang out and grow plants and so forth out there. They got all kinds of funny things and so forth growing. Yeah, so it's not good to have that kind of nuclear radiation. So anyway, yeah, the Cold War. I mean, we still got nuclear weapons and so forth. We still have enemies. I mean, it's not going to be all good news when the Cold War is over. But write this down. When the Berlin Wall came down, there were a lot of people like, oh my gosh, this could be over. And if you've been paying close attention to the news and so forth and what Gorbachev was doing in the Soviet Union, you saw that that was where things were going. But this is one of those things where you could sort of put a date on it and go, I remember where I was. I was a young attorney, right? Yeah, I'd just taken the bar exam. Actually, I'd taken it the year before, passed the bar exam. I was I was working for the Idaho Supreme Court at that time. And then I later worked for the prosecutors, and then later, I went into teaching, that's right. So it was a big deal, okay? How did it come into existence? How did that play out? Well, let me give you the details, because one of the cool things about this particular video is it's focusing its attention on Germany, on Deutschland. East Germany, West Germany. Which is the communist one? That's right. And actually, it's interesting because sometimes you'll hear the different people go, the GDR and the DDR, and I'm like, okay, which one's? The GDR, DDR. Just tell me which if it's east or west. If you hear them say DDR, that's east. DDR, Demokratische Deutsche Republik, as opposed to the anyway, the GDR is the West Germany part. Who was, Rodrigo, check your notes, who was at the beginning of this time period or so forth, 1989, who was the leader of East Germany? I'll give you a clue. Initials EH. Nope. That's the foreign minister for the Soviet Union. EH. Do you want to call on somebody? Call on somebody. Quickly, come on. Call on somebody who's got their hand up. Good grief. Erich Honecker. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Rodrigo, you're not out of the woods yet. You're going to have to get this next one. And if you don't know, you can call on somebody again that's got their hand up. Right? Here's an easy question. You ready? What major sporting event is taking place on Sunday? No, today is Wednesday. This Sunday, what major sporting event is taking place on Sunday? Oh my gosh. Not the Olympics. I'll give you a clue. A really old guy, and I'm like, he's not that old. He's only 45 years old. Tom Brady is playing in that game. Basketball. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing against the Kansas City Chiefs in the very good, the Super Bowl. It's a game of football. What do you wear on your head if you're playing football? No, not a cap. What do you call this? Helmet! Give me the other part of the name of the West German leader. The first one is helmet. Yeah, that was. Is that a cool segue? Is that cool? Is that cool? Is it not cool? Is it cool? Yeah, well, what's the last name of helmet? The West German Chancellor. People are watching this video going, oh my gosh. What is the last name of the West German Chancellor? His first name is Helmut, and his last name is not warm, it is not hot, it is not cold. McKinley, what's his last name? Kohl. Kohl. Helmut Kohl. He's the Chancellor. So that's their top political position in West Germany. Okay? So if you were to go to Germany today, which is unified, there's no more East-West, it's all unified, the top political position is Chancellor. And it's a girl, a woman. Yeah, Angela Merkel. She's been the elected leader of. Well, I mean, she keeps getting re-elected and so forth. Her political party still is maintaining a majority or coalition. I think it's a lot of the times. Anyway, so here we go. Here's the detail. Landon, you're watching the video you did yesterday, right? So can you tell me? Yeah, I've already posted it last night. So yeah, that's how it works. So yeah, yeah. You don't just learn half of the stuff when you do this convenient thing, because some of these people are regulars. So you need to know this, right? Yeah, sometimes you have to wait a while because I have to drive home, and then I have to upload it, and usually I go a long way. It's like past Twin Falls. No, it's not. But anyway, it's that direction. So take a guess. Which East European countries, prior to this Berlin Wall coming down, had big changes and had gotten rid of hardline communist leaders? There's actually two. Have you eaten your food yet? When will you eat your food? That's one of them. Very good. All right. Hungary is the other one. I'm trying to think of a really stupid clue for the other one. Okay. Turkey's not part of the Warsaw Pact. What's the other country? So in Hungary, right, and they were taking down sections of the border to Austria, and so lots of people were coming through Hungary on the way to Austria, and then they were showing up in other places, particularly West Germany. What was the other country that had a lot of anti-communist feeling in it already in the early 80s? I'll do the really obvious clues. Go ahead, say it. Or should we take a poll of everyone in the class to see if they know the answer? This would be a land of Poles. Poland, of course. All right, so. Okay, so anyway, and we'll see in the next episode, not this one, but the next episode, we'll see communism fall, as it will in this episode, in East Germany, and then it'll fall in Czechoslovakia, and then we'll see the same thing taking place in a different set of factors in Romania. Bulgaria, for some reason, they don't seem to focus as much on that in the turn. It's like the one that doesn't. I think Bulgaria's experience is a little bit more like Czechoslovakia and West Germany and so forth. Romania is going to be not very pretty because Nicolae Ceausescu, some of you guys remember this from 10th grade, he's going to go down fighting. He's going to turn the military on the crowds. So here we go. Today, we're talking about the various different crowds that are going to be assembling during this time period. You're going to get protests. You're also going to get people going, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to join a protest, but you know what, I'm going to protest by leaving the country. Write this down. Lots of West Germans East Germans living in East Germany, living in East Berlin or any of the other cities. Leipzig is going to be a very important one. Write that down. Leipzig. I want to say, I think Angela Merkel is from that. It's a very large city. It's not too far from Berlin. Leipzig, Leipzig. I do, yep. And there's a lot of people living there, and they're like, some of them are going, you know, I'm just going to get out of here. Livy, you were watching the video. Is it easy to go from one Eastern European country to another? Is it easy to go from an Eastern European country to a Western European country? No. Okay, you got that part. So if you were in East Germany, could you travel to Czechoslovakia? Sure. Could you travel to Hungary? If you were in Hungary, let's say you're from East Germany, Livy, you go to Hungary and you just never want to go back to East Germany again. You want to go to freedom and opportunity, and the West German government, make sure you have this. The West German government has an open door. They're very open to refugees, particularly, and I would say almost exclusively, from East Germany. They basically say, if you can make your way over here, we'll take care of you. We'll get you started and so forth. So if you're in Hungary, where do you head if you want to get out of the communist-dominated area? Well, eventually you go to Germany. Frank, what country do you have to go through in order to get there? I don't know if you can see it very well here, because I've mentioned this already, right? You're in Hungary, and you had... Shh! McKinley, your clues, they're just sort of annoying, okay? You head west from Hungary. You do not go down under to Australia. You go where? Very good. And what language do they speak in Austria? They don't speak Austrian. That is not... you Dummkopf. They speak German, yeah. They speak German, yeah. Hello, yeah. And then from Austria, then you go up north to West Germany, okay? So there were a lot of people doing that. Write that down. There were a lot of people that were doing that because, of course, the Hungarians had opened up their border. And so people were crossing over. And so the East German government's like, oh, we really don't like this. And then people started getting freaked out and so forth. And it's like, if you can't make your way directly to West Germany, here's one way to get to West Germany without actually going into West Germany. Write it down, because this is where some of the drama is going to unfold in the video. You go to the embassy, okay? You go to the embassy. So you had some East Germans made their way into Czechoslovakia, and for some reason they didn't see, I always forget exactly, like maybe the Czechoslovakian government's like, we're going to like arrest these guys and send them back up to East Germany because we know what you're up to. So here you are, you're in Czechoslovakia, you're in the capital city, you're in Prague. And you're afraid that, like, the Czechoslovak government in cahoots with the East German government, because they're both run by hardliners, they're going to arrest you and they're going to send you back home. So how do you get to West Germany without going physically into West Germany? It's a trick. How can you do it? What part of Prague is actually a little part of West Germany? In the capital city, and in the United States has a little part of the United States in that. It's the embassy. Write that down. The embassy. That's why it was such an outrage when the Iranian government violated the integrity of the United States embassy in Tehran, and not only went in there but took the United States Embassy personnel as captive. That is so against the rules of diplomacy. Yeah. Prague. Prague. That's the capital of Czechoslovakia. Prague. Okay? Do you remember the Prague Spring in 1968? Right? We should, because that was part of what we covered, right? You know, they're like, hey, let's kind of chill out and everything. And then Brezhnev was like, no. And he sent in the military and overthrew the reformist-minded communist government in Czechoslovakia in 1968. So here we go. Now we got a whole bunch of East Germans, and they just start going into the West German embassy. They just flock into there. And they're like climbing over fences and so forth. You'll see it. It's very dramatic. And you get some Czech police that are like trying to take somebody down. They're like, oh, whatever. You know. So eventually you'll have inside of the West German embassy compound hundreds, if not thousands, of East Germans going, can we go to West Germany? And Helmut Kohl's like, yeah, you can go to West Germany, but it's going to be tricky. Ultimately, they make a deal. Erich Honecker, you'll hear this. Erich Honecker, the East German leader, agrees to let these people go to West Germany. But he wants it under his terms. He says, we're not just going to let them go. We're going to expel them. And so it's really weird. They arrange a train load full of these people. This is kind of weird because I would feel a little nervous. They're going back up through East Germany, and then the train is going to go all the way and drop them into West Germany. So these people agree to get out of the West German embassy. They get on a train, and then before they leave, they have to hand over their East German passports as part of their expulsion. And of course, they're just looking like, I'm not going to hand it over. I'm going to drop it in front of the East German officials. So they were really happy about that. So you got hundreds of them are expelled. So guess what happens at the West German embassy in Prague the next day? It gets full again. Yeah, you got like 7,000 East German people coming in to the embassy. So that's going to be, you're going to have that dramatic effect going on with East Germans wanting to get out of the country. Now, let's shift our attention to another thing that's going on at the same time. Some East Germans are like, you know what, I don't feel like I should leave my country. I think my country should change to leave me, yeah, or have the communist government leave and grant us the freedoms we want. And so the attention's going to turn to protests that are organized in Leipzig. Write this down. Leipzig is not too far from East Berlin, okay? This is going to be the center of focus within East Germany. Very brave, pro-democracy, pro-freedom East Germans are going to organize massive demonstrations on a sequence of Mondays. I don't know why they choose Mondays. Maybe they don't have to go to school that day or something. I don't know. It seems like that would be appropriate. Anyway, not Sunday, but Monday. And so they come out in the streets. One of the first ones is going to be on September 4th, 1989. Okay? So this is all taking place sort of in the summer and now into the fall of 1989. And again, this is clear. I mean, going back to it, it's like, okay, we got Honecker, he's a hardliner. We got Gorbachev, who's like, hey, you do whatever you want. I'm not going to send in the Red Army. I'm all about freedom and expression and so forth. So East Germans organize, and you have thousands of people showing up to protest in Leipzig, September 4th, 1989, and then you'll have subsequent ones. Yeah? Gorbachev was the leader of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union. He was chosen by the Politburo, the top Communist Party people there. Well, some of the hardliners are going to try and get rid of him, but we'll hold off on that. That'll be the next episode. Anyway, so what does the East German government do with these demonstrations? They send in the police. What's the name? Raise your hand if you can tell me. What's the name for the East German, like, secret police? That's the Soviet one. KGB is the Soviet one. These guys would be like the East German equivalent of the KGB. Did I write that one down on the thing? Thought I did. You may have heard it. We covered it in 10th grade, but that's okay. No, we did. Oh, what did you say? The Stasi. Very good. S-T-A-S-I, the Stasi. Okay? And they're like the secret police kind of types, and they work with the police. And so they're cracking down on the crowds. But the crowds keep coming back. The crowds keep coming back. Okay? So this is taking place in Leipzig. Meanwhile, in October, they have the 40th anniversary of the creation of East Germany. So Erich Honecker hosts Gorbachev, and they have these, yay, East Germany marches and so forth taking place in East Berlin. No, but here's what happened. It was fascinating because people were coming out and they were doing their official, like, yay, we like communism and so forth, but not much enthusiasm. A lot of young people and other protesters were going, yay, Gorby, yay, Gorby. They were cheering for Gorbachev. What did they like about Gorbachev? Obviously, I showed the video way too early. Oh my gosh, the Berlin Wall came down because they were offering cheese in the crust. You know, no, that's not what happened. I feel for we're in good hands with you guys. Our futures, we are in good hands. Anyway, knowledgeable. So what do they like about Gorbachev? Did they like Gorbachev's free speech thing? Did they like his democracy thing? Yeah, and so that's what they're doing. They're like, hey, Gorby, Honecker sucks, we like Gorby. And so they would be out there, and yeah, some of those protesters would be beaten up as well. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, some of the demonstrations taking place in East Berlin, they're getting beaten up and so forth. So the question is, these protests keep getting bigger. Back to Leipzig, okay? Here's the key date. I want to say, because I had to double check on this one, October 16th. October 16th, you have, I mean, it's like the crowds keep getting bigger. On October 16th, there was ultimately 70,000 peaceful protesters in the streets of Leipzig that day. And the East German government's like, well, let me see, what should we do? Obviously, we need more personnel. They actually, this is fascinating, they actually had their personnel, the military and the police, with weapons, with extra ammunition, anticipating crowd control that day. Extra ammunition. The Soviet ambassador got wind of this, and he basically said, you know what, East German government, you guys need to not go that direction and open up with full deadly force on the crowd. Do not send those armed police into the crowd on October the 16th when the crowd is formed. Send those troops back to the barracks. I mean, that's a Soviet ambassador, you know, giving the word, you know, basically from Gorbachev. Don't go down that path of shooting on your own population. They went back to the barracks. The crowd was able to march peacefully on that day in Leipzig. Within the next 2 days, Honecker is removed as the leader of East Germany. Write that down. Honecker is removed. He's voted out by their top political group. And what is the top political group in communist countries called? The Politburo. Okay, so it's the top communists. Okay, so this is fascinating. It's like, wow, we actually have the Soviets giving the message, do not shoot people up. And then, because, I mean, like, what could happen? Because if you start shooting people up and the crowd starts turning against the troops and so forth, what is the crowd going to want if a whole bunch of them are dead and they ultimately get their hands on Erich Honecker? They're going to want him dead, yeah. So Erich Honecker was able to leave his job alive. They replaced him with another guy. You can see his name in there. Egon Krenz. Egon Krenz is going to be the last East German communist leader. And he's got really big teeth. He seems like a nicer guy. Yeah. The Politburo, yeah. They removed him from that top. It was like he was clueless. He was like, let's crack down on these guys. No, I don't have the support of the Soviets. He was losing it. He was just not there. Egon Krenz. Do you see the name Egon Krenz there? That's going to be the new communist leader of East Germany. And so he actually does some very important things. I mean, the crowd doesn't really trust him. He's like, wow, can the communists still stay in position? One of the things that the crowd, of course, is asking for, among many reforms, is a very pivotal reform. Make it easier for East Germans to travel to West Germany. Because maybe some of those East Germans actually want to stay in East Germany if things work out better. But they've got family, or maybe they want to check out opportunities, and just go over to West Germany, Just go over there. And so the crowds keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We got 120,000 show up there on October 16th, right? And then you subsequently, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, the protests are spreading to East Berlin, and they're not sending in the police, and they're getting bigger. And eventually, the East German government's like, okay, fine. Write it down. On November 9th of 1989, the East German government announced changes to the travel policy. East German government, yeah. So basically what they said is they were going to lift the restrictions on East Germans and East Berliners, whatever, anybody, traveling to West Berlin or to West Germany. The guy who gave the announcement didn't have all of the details at his disposal. Because one of the reporters was asking, when does this take effect? Now the real answer is, well, we got to do the paperwork, and you got to go to the government to get your official piece of paper, but that's going to be a lot easier than the data. That was the real answer, but you know what he actually said? Right now. Yeah, immediately. And people were watching this on television, listening to it on the radio, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can cross over. I can go over to West Berlin right now. And so all these East Berliners get out of their apartments and so forth, and they head to the Brandenburg Gate. No, they didn't. But they could have been. If it were any other previous day and a bunch of people just start going en masse. What are the orders of the East German border? Yeah, to shoot. Yeah. Stay away. But these guys, they watch the same thing on television. They're like, this is nuts. Can we get an order as to, the paperwork and so forth? And so all these crowds are showing up, and they're getting bigger, and they're demanding the East German border guards, open up the gate. The East German border guards are like, there's a lot of people here, and I don't know. So after several hours, eventually they're like, okay. And so that night they opened up the border, and East Berliners came across into West Berlin. Of course, the West Berliners are watching the same thing and so forth, and they have this big, huge party, and they climb on top of the Berlin Wall, and they're partying like it's 1989. And it's and people around the world are watching going, oh my gosh, wow. And you could tell which direction it was filmed from. If you're filming it from West Berlin, you look at the wall and it's got all kinds of graffiti on it and so forth. Because the West Berlin part of the wall, right, which you couldn't get shot if you were on the West Berlin side, you could spray paint, do all kinds of things like that and so forth. So if you see that up there, and of course one of the things are you got any tools? So why they're whacking away at it, right? They're whacking away at it. Right? I was there, I whacked away at it and got this little piece. No, I wasn't there. Okay? But yeah, this is original Berliner Mauerstein. Original Berlin Wall brick. Ein Stück deutscher Geschichte. A piece of German history. Von 13 August 1961 to 9 November 19... I don't know, maybe it's true. It was spray painted. I got this from somebody who said that they got it from somebody who put it in plastic, and therefore, I don't know, maybe it's authentic. That's cool. Does it taste? It's a piece of granite. Or cement, excuse me. I don't know. It's cool. I did talk to an American, though, who was there. When my wife and I traveled, for our honeymoon, because we got married in June 1990, the next year, we traveled all kinds of various different parts, visited our friends, they were still in the Soviet Union, or they defected to Sweden, etc. But we talked to this one American musician. She was a cellist. She had a big instrument. And she was a very good cellist. And she was traveling on tour in Eastern Europe. And she was set to make a exchange. She was going to travel from East Berlin and catch a train in West Berlin to our next destination. So she was expecting to easily, because she had the proper paperwork and everything, easily go through from East Berlin to over to West Berlin. But that night, instead of like doing a normal transit and crossing the border, there were masses and masses of people all around. She was there for history. It was crazy. She missed her train. But she got to witness and be part of a historical event. So, I mean, that's really cool. Yeah. What's that? She got on a train, and then she went to an airport, and then she got on a plane. No, we met him in a train while we were traveling. We shared a train, room when we were traveling around. Yeah, I mean, it was a fascinating story. She likes trains, cellos, and airports are cool too because they can get you over, oceans more quickly than boats and so forth. Yeah, I know. So there we go. Here's Bush's response. Write this down. President Bush, he basically said, I don't want to overreact by dancing on the wall. He felt very emotional about it all. You'll hear him say that. But his position is, okay, and we've seen this before. His position is, okay, the Soviets have lost. Let's see if we can transition them and East Europe as much as possible to being partners, economic partners, military partners. Which former communist East European countries are now economic partners and military partners of ours? All of them. Yeah. I want to say, in NATO, Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, Bulgaria, and then 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, are part of NATO. As far as economic cooperation, all those Eastern European countries are now part of the European Union, and some of them were able to get in fairly quickly. Okay? So, and it's interesting because if you go to Berlin today, you look around, there's been so much development. In 1989, you'd see the West German side had more prosperity, but now you go and you're seeing opportunities left, right, center, all over the place. They were former Soviet. Yeah, and I'm not sure if Moldova is part of NATO. I know Ukraine is not part of NATO. They would like to be part of NATO, trust me, but they're not. And they want to be part of the European Union for economic cooperation and so forth. Okay? Ukraine? They're not part of the Soviet Union. They're an independent country. It's complicated. For NATO? Well, I tell you what, here's one thing that would be a practical thing. If Ukraine were part of NATO, and Ukraine is fighting against forces that have taken over part of their territory, which they are, under NATO's, was it Clause 5 or Section 5 or something like that, if one is attacked, all are attacked, and all will come together and respond. It's a military alliance, so we would be obligated to go in on behalf of Ukraine. And yeah, I mean, it's like, let me see, I'm signing up for a military treaty. Oh. And also, like, as in a declaration of war at the same time. It's very complicated. Is the United States willing to do that? To go to war in Ukraine? I don't know that we are. Georgia is another one that would like that too, because the Russians have taken some of their territory. Here we go. March 1990. March 1990, the East German government now finally opens up for multi-party political elections. And things are going to happen very quickly. March 1990, in March 1990, the first free elections in East Germany. You could see it coming, because that's what the people want. And guess which political parties don't do as well in East German elections? The communists. And what is the goal of the newly elected people? To get together with the government of West Germany and reunify. And when will Germany be reunified? In 1990. And Germany, all of Germany, will be part of NATO. All of Germany. And is Gorbachev going to be okay with that? What date was the unification? I want to say in October. I didn't write it down on here, but I want to say in October. Yeah. Is the reunification? I want to say like October 1st, but you'd have to double check. Somebody could look that as far as like when was Germany officially reunified. And who would be the first leader of the reunified, the first chancellor of the reunified? This is easy. Melody, who do you suppose is the first leader of the reunified Germany? Helmut Kohl. Yep, Helmut Kohl. The same guy that was sitting right next to when Reagan was giving the Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. Yeah, so you'll see him in the video. It's all very exciting. It's all very dramatic. It's all part of history. What date? October what? 3rd. Okay, there we go. That's the reunification date. And they celebrate that. Okay? All right, here we go. Let's watch. Do. Let's start it. We can watch this tomorrow as well.